I'm Otto Jørgensen. I work in Dynaudio Academy and I was involved with developing the new Focus from day one.
Otto, take one.
The new Focus is a series of wireless active speakers where we combined studio-grade performance of legendary drivers, easy to use, very advanced streaming. We use the best platform for streaming in the world. The new Focus is basically designed for anyone who wants that high level of performance, but not necessarily all the hassle of a full traditional hi-fi system. So the new Focus is a system that's easy to set up, easy to get started to use, and once it's set up and running, you just simply connect to it and start playing your music. You can use it just as easily as any wireless system, but you get the performance that you would expect from a Dynaudio speaker. The new Focus is built with versatility in mind, so you can basically use whatever source you have, whether you prefer streaming or a CD player, or if you have a vinyl connection, you can connect a record player, and again have the very high level of performance, whether or not it's an analog or digital source. We really took care of the signal path to make sure that we have the absolute best performance, no matter what the source is. So in 2014, we made the Focus XD, which basically set a gold standard for active speakers. It included some wireless technology as well. So with the new Focus, we took that to a completely new level. Much improved driver technologies, much better amplifiers, but we also built in a completely new streaming platform, which allows you to do a lot more things. So what the customers expect to do today is basically pick up your streaming app from whatever app you prefer to use, and just be able to select the speaker inside the app and play to it. That's basically it. With the Focus XD that we put to market in 2014, we focused a lot on the performance of an active loudspeaker. It has some wireless technologies built in, but it was all about how great sound could we put into the speaker. So with the new Focus, we are really putting a lot of emphasis on the usability of it. I think all these different types of streaming and how to take music from a phone or whatever app you're using to a loudspeaker, that has become commonplace today. So this is something everyone can do with all types of speakers. But it's not very common to do that and get the actual performance of what it was like to listen to that music in the studio. So this is what I really think the new Focus can do. So it takes that quality of performance that the way we would like people to hear the music, and puts that into a package that everyone can use. And it's very simple to use in your everyday life. The active system allows us to utilize the maximum performance of the drivers in a way that's quite unique to the active systems, and combines that with simple ways of using it that has a lot of advantages to it. In passive speaker systems, you have some flexibility in what components you connect to it, and you can keep updating and fiddling with different things, different updates. How can I improve my sound a little bit? In the active speaker systems, we are kind of stepping away from that a little bit and making a system that's more complete as a whole. It's a closed system. That closeness also allows us to do a lot of things that you couldn't do in a passive speaker, in terms of how we utilize the drivers and how we work with the cabinet to improve sound. In the new Focus, all of the speaker models has a closed cabinet. And the way that acoustically works with the drivers means that with the DSP and the amplifier, we can extend the bass performance, so we get lower frequencies out of the cabinet compared to what you would do in a traditional passive speaker with a port in it. So there's a lot of things we can do with the closed box systems, and that opens up possibilities. For example, when you are not playing loud, which you're not doing all the time in most cases, you'll get a lower frequency output because we can utilize the excursion of the woofers to play lower frequencies, even though you're not playing that loud. And once you turn the volume up, the DSP has circuits and protection circuits, what we call a sliding high pass, which will basically protect your drivers so you don't damage your driver no matter how loud you're playing. We build in studio-grade amplifiers that are from Pascal, based in Copenhagen. It's a Danish company that designs amplifiers specifically for studio-grade use. And some of it has seen their way into traditional hi-fi systems. And now we took these amplifiers and built them into the speakers. And that allows us to do a lot of things because of the very high performance they have. Pascal amplifiers has a very high peak output, up to 1,000 watt peak, combined with very low distortion and also good power supply, good cooling capacity. We can run the speakers very hot for a very long time with no risk of damage to either the drivers or the amplifiers. Basically, we selected amplifier modules that are powerful enough to always maximize the driver excursion. So it essentially means you will never clip the amplifier, no matter what your music is, no matter if the music is compressed or dynamic, no matter how loud you're playing and for how long. You will never run into clipping. You'll never have that distortion from the amplifier. So you'll always have the best possible sound that the drivers are able to make. And since we have very good drivers in all of our speakers, that is performance at a very high level. There you definitely have the potential to make some people angry in all of these models. So. We made the new Focus as a family of speakers to basically cater for different people's needs. The Focus 10 is a compact stand mount speaker with a 14 centimeter woofer. It's the most powerful 14 centimeter woofer we've ever made. And it's driven by an extremely powerful amplifier for such a small speaker. It's a 280 watt Pascal amplifier driving this thing. That makes it really, really capable for that size. And the next step up is a floor standing speaker, which uses two of the same woofers. And it actually has two amplifier channels, also 280 watt per channel to drive that speaker. So again, a very, very impressive package in a quite small, slim speaker. The big guy in the series is the Focus 50, which is a full three-way speaker. Has a dedicated mid-range. The mid-range driver is basically directly from our high-end studio monitors. Contour 60 uses exactly the same mid-range, so it's a very high-end mid-range driver. And a pair of 18 centimeter woofers. And these two woofers together actually put out an output that's very comparable to active subwoofers. So you have that directly built into the speaker. And again, you have 280 watts for a mid-range, and you have 280 watts for the two woofers, which is enough to fully maximize the excursion at any frequency that you're driving the speaker at, up until the limit of the excursion. And given 4 total woofers in 2 relatively large cabinets, that's a very significant output. That if you want to compare this with subwoofer, you need a serious subwoofer to actually improve on this. For the tweeter, we have 110 watts going into the tweeter, and actually that's more than enough for what you need for a tweeter, because the energy in the music is mostly focused on the lower frequencies. So at the higher frequencies that the tweeter is playing, you don't really need that much energy. So 110 watts is actually very overpowered compared to what you're actually sending into the tweeter. But the DSP is controlling all that, so you don't really have to think about it. So we're specifying it as 110 watt because that's what the amplifier can do, even though that's more than enough for what we actually need for the tweeter. It's a pretty sensitive tweeter. Every driver, every speaker, every amplified channel is powerful enough to always maximize whatever the capability of the drivers is. So if anyone is asking, why 280 watts and why do we have 280 watts for a mid-range and also 280 watts for the woofer, basically 280 watts is enough to maximize the dual woofers in the Focus 50. So for the mid-range, it's just extra headroom. But it's never a bad thing to have that extra headroom. It does result in an audibly better sound that you can always hear, that no matter what you're doing, you never have that dynamic compression in the amplifier that you can sometimes hear. Especially if you have modern music that's very compressed, you will actually need a high output from the amplifier consistently. Over time, it needs to be able to provide that level of power, and in many cases, the amplifier can do that briefly, but not over time as you're listening to your music. So if you want to listen to your music for a long time, it makes a difference that the amplifier is not stressed. The impression I get from listening to the new Focus speakers is that it's always very relaxing and very effortless. And it doesn't matter what type of music you're listening to. You can feel that the speaker is always able to handle what you are throwing at it. So you just really want to listen to more music. That's also why these technologies are so popular in our high-end studio monitors. Because in a studio, you're working a full 8-hour workday, listening to music, and it needs to be a stressless experience. So why not have that at home as well? You know, it makes you want to listen to more music because it's just so effortless, no matter what you're listening to. Yeah, you can say the basic technologies that we use here is extremely similar to what we use in all of our high-end studio monitors. So we are packaging in a way that you would want to use at home, and we're designing it in a way that fits into your living room, so that it doesn't really matter how good it sounds if you don't want to have the speakers in your living room. We have a simple design with very high build quality and a nice finish, and it's easy to use in everyday life. You just select your app, select your speaker as the output, and start playing music, and it just becomes sort of an integral part of your everyday life, and you don't really have to think about all of the technology that's behind it, that is actually at the level of the high-end studio monitors. I think the new Focus will make some waves in the industry because the way it is today, you typically is kind of deciding between passive speakers where you have a lot of emotion going into the designs and in the tuning and the build of these things. And then you have a class of speakers that are very digital and easy to use, and you can do all of these advanced things, but they don't have the same attention to the detail and the emotion of listening to music from a good speaker system. You don't really get that. So this is really combining those two things. And it's mainly because we took all of that emotion and attention that we usually build into our passive speakers and said, what happens if we put that into the active speakers, not just in the cabinets and the drivers, but also the amplifier design. We have a very, very advanced amplifier design in terms of the audio quality. So it's not just about what it can do, but the things we have done to make it sound better is extremely important as well, and it's extremely advanced, and that gives the new Focus, I think, a unique position in that you both get the usability of the digital systems, but it's really combined with a level of performance that we don't necessarily normally see in active speakers. If you look at active speakers from a technical point of view, there are all sorts of reasons why active speakers should be better than passive, but very often they are not better because you didn't put the same attention into the finer details of it. You get caught up with what it can do technically and all of the things all the possibilities that it gives you. But you don't necessarily spend the same amount of effort in terms of the tuning and the listening to it, which is the tuning of the speaker is a very important part of a Dynaudio speaker. So when we're tuning speakers, it's a combination of using the Jupiter measurement room and the facilities that we have to take care of the technical side and all of the objective side. And at the same time, we do a lot of listening. There's a lot of building the right loudspeaker and building a speaker that sounds good is all about listening to it. That's what you're going to do in the end as a customer. So that phase is just as important in an active speaker as it is in a passive speaker. So the combination of the objective measurement results combined with our experience in tuning very, very high-end passive speakers, that results in a really high level of performance from the new Focus. A speaker like the new Focus, it starts out with some engineers going, what if we took this technology and combined with that technology over here, could we make something that sounds even better? How great would it be? How good can we make it sound if we combine these things? You don't listen to technological possibilities. You listen to the actual sound coming out of the speaker. And in a big way, that's actually defined just as much by the tuning. So there are a lot of things that you don't just see in the specification sheet that still affects the sound quality. Making very high quality sound is, honestly, that's what we have been doing for 45 years. That's relatively standard for us to do. I'm not going to say easy, but it's a standard thing for us to do. That's what we want to do. But we need to put it into a speaker that everyday customers can use. So we want to put it in a package that is simple to set up and simple to use in your everyday life and simple to live with. And that's what I think we did with the new Focus. My favorite thing is overall the attention to detail. And one of the places where you see that is once you put on the grill. If you put on a cloth grill in front of your speaker drivers, it will affect the performance a little bit. So what we can do, because it's an active speaker, is we are sensing, is the grill on or not? So the speaker changes the EQ to compensate for having the grill cloth in front of the drivers. And it will even signify that with a slight change of the LED in the front. And you'll be able to see in the app that the picture changes. That's just one of those neat little things where we're really showing that we care about even that small detail of sound. And I really like it because it's not just a cool feature, it actually improves the sound that you're reaching. Basically, one way or another, you can connect any source to the new Focus. We have the world's best streaming platform built right into the speaker. So any streaming platform you can think of, we are likely to support it directly. It's a room-ready endpoint. It has AirPlay 2, Chromecast, Spotify Connect, Tidal Connect, UPnP, Bluetooth, QPlay for China. Other than that, we have some physical inputs. There's an optical and a coaxial digital input. We also have a very good analog input. If you have an analog source, for instance, a vinyl player, we have an analog input that we take a lot of attention in terms of having very low noise, great sound quality from that. We have a sensitivity setting in the app, which allows you to adjust for different types of analog sources. So we took a lot of attention to the analog input. One of the unique features of having a secondary WiSA receiver is that the system itself connects through WiSA, but then the secondary receiver pairs to an external receiver, which means that you can switch between those seamlessly. So if you have a WiSA-enabled TV, you can switch to the WiSA TV, and then whenever you want to hear streaming again or another source or your vinyl player, you just switch to that, and it switches seamlessly between the two, which is actually quite unique for the new Focus. So in our setup and control app, we have a setting to allow you to adjust for the placement of the speaker. So depending on, is it placed out into the room or is it near the wall or the corners, you can select a setting that will adjust the EQ to match accordingly. If you want a more advanced room adaptation option, we have Direct Live support built in. This basically means that you can use the Direct Live software to make a measurement of your room and then upload the measurement correction directly to the speaker via the network, just using the Direct software. If you're using a Wi-Fi connection, you basically have to choose between a long global delay, which causes lip sync issues, or you have a very poor connection between the left and the right speakers. And that means your stereo imaging will be all over the place. So even the voices will move when you're listening to music, and obviously we don't want that. So to avoid that choice, we're using the WiSA connection, which, because it runs at different frequencies in a different protocol, it allows a very, very tight connection with an extremely low delay. So you get zero lip sync issues, as well as extremely tight imaging between the speakers. We even worked further with the software. We have a custom designed software inside the speakers, where we are improving on that even further by synchronizing the clock between the two speakers, which again locks the imaging in place between the speakers and gives a much more focused image. The WiSA connection between the speakers supports up to 24-bit 96 kilohertz, which is basically what most high-res sources are using. And it does this with a very, very tight synchronization between the left and the right speakers. If you want even more than that, we have the option for running a coax digital cable between the speakers, and this supports up to 192 kilohertz. It's so easy with wireless speakers today to listen to a lot of music and to listen to more music. But the real difference is, do I want to listen to more music? I've not just heard, but also helped build speakers in very, very high price categories. So I'm used to hearing sound quality at a very high level. But at the end, it comes down to, do I want to go home at the end of the day and listen to music? And that's really what I feel like with the new Focus. At the end of a day, working with sound all day, I still want to listen to music when I come home.